Great. I think the topic of discussion today with these two fine gentlemen is around digital transformation. I think it's a buzzword. And we've seen in the recent past, digital transformation has been the topmost priority for any banking and financial services organization, right? Especially in the post-COVID era, I think it's more of a prerequisite, right, for business growth, process optimizations, customer experience, more importantly. In today's discussion, what we'll try and touch upon is how some of these traditional organizations in the financial space they're able to leverage the data and the technology to the same effect as that of perhaps a new age fintech who are like pushing the envelope. With that said, Francis, let me come to you with my first question. I think the handshake between technology and marketing has been getting stronger by the day, with leaders becoming more and more tech savvy. Tell us something about your recent adoptions at HDFC Life that has helped you, bring about a big change in the customer experience.
Sure, thanks. So I think like any other piece, I think the overall digital journeys have been kind of improving, and I think there is a benchmark which has been set by e-commerce and things like that, and customers don't kind of expect anything less from their bank, from their insurance company, from their mutual fund and stuff like that. So I think one of the key elements has been building these seamless, frictionless customer journeys. Easier said than done, right? But I think it's that whole paranoia behind saying that, okay, can I reduce this one more click? Can I make it even better, right? And it's especially valuable from an insurance and especially life insurance point of view, where we have, say, on an average 112 to 115 fields which need to be filled. We take medical details, we take financial details, and so on and so forth. The other element has been, thanks to the sector itself being very data rich, right? We capture a lot of information about the customers. How can we use this information to kind of both achieve company objectives as well as the customer objectives? Examples of company objectives would include everything from customer propensity models, next best product or product recommendation models, and things like that. Customer centric models, things like, okay, can we do straight through underwriting, right? Can we basically not necessarily have this particular case being looked at by an underwriter, and give that faster experience to customers? A lot of other sort of newer age technologies like AI, etc., have been used for today what is called as life certificate. In the sense, today you would have heard this conversation of wherein the FM was speaking about there's this lady who had come to one of the branches to collect her pension, and said, okay, we should have the pension delivered to the house of the customer. So I think it happened during COVID, where he said, okay, can we have a face verification software, which instead of people coming to the HDFC Life branches to give proof that they are alive and therefore collect pension, can we just simply do a face verification combined with, say, an Aadhaar authentication, and ensure that some of these things kind of happen much faster? So I think across the spectrum, whether it's customer journeys, it's AI/ML, there has been a whole bunch of things which even the older BFSI companies have started adopting quite fervently to kind of improve customer experience.
How do you align your internal teams, Francis? I mean, right from the top management to the people working at an execution level. How do you kind of align them to the vision of digital transformation? It's a large project, so to say. Very many small little aspects to be looked at and taken care of. So how do you kind of percolate this vision to the entire team?
I think the best way to do it is to do it in what I would call as increments and iterations, right? Now, a lot of things don't lend themselves most directly towards this. A good example is, if your data has not been maintained properly, if it's not in a place, and there is this whole thing that I need to create a data lake or a data warehouse, or today the new buzzword is a customer data platform, then yes, I mean, there will be some sort of upfront investment, which is basically, and it's also very upstream, right? So from a straight line to revenue, it's not so much there. But in most other things, and you'll be surprised as to the number of things that can kind of move in both iterations and increments, as I would call it. Establishing one department which goes and establishes a sort of a return on investment. People are very easy to easily catch on, whether an organization is small or large. Most people are very success draws a lot more to say that, okay, even I want to try this in my department, I want to try this in my area, I want to try this in my channel, right? So establishing small footholds and then growing them, I think, is the best possible way to.
Yeah, Actually, if I could add on to that, and this is something, Francis, I completely agree, and um, I firmly believe in this whole agile mindset, right? And agility is talked about for software implementation. It's not just for software implementation. It is for any project implementation, and in today's world, how you get people along is by showing proof of success, right? So, you set the base up, you've got your people aligned on the outcomes and KPIs you want to measure. Measure those KPIs, right? You want to put in some marketing automation in place, activate that campaign, look at the results. If the results are positive and they are, you know, you get your second round of funding, keep going. And that's what I think Francis also is talking about, iterative and iterations, right? Because the truth is, we don't know what the world or the market will be 6 months down the line. It will keep continuously changing, right? Change is a part of what we see each and every day. So how do you react to change? And what you, as long as you've aligned on what you're going to react to change, that will also give you success.
Great. I think you make a great point about change, Abhijit. My next question is probably related to that point. In your journey, I believe, in the last 2 decades, what's your take? How nimble have some of these traditional banks and FIs have been in adopting some of these technologies, and where do you see them, heading forward in coming times?
Sure. That's a very interesting one. So if I go back and, like you said, I've been doing this for 20 years in some form or the other. See, one of the first industries, apart from defense, to adopt technology was banking and financial services, right? Which led to an interesting paradox. If you go and look at a lot of the large banks, they are still on mainframes. There are many, many legacy systems out there, right? And while other industries, for example, retail and consumer goods adopted new technology, not necessarily banking and financial services. To large organizations, they are a bit slow to move, but when they move, they have the whole sort of force of the organization, right? Some of the most successful stories, and this is one of my personal things which I've seen upfront. So before my current organization, for over a decade, I was with IT services and IT consulting, and I went to London, and I had the good fortune to spend a few weeks with one of the most traditional and oldest banks in the UK. I'm not going to name names, but they became pioneers in their digital transformation journey. Again, what I spoke of in the agile mindset, right? It was far more about aligning and how they completely changed the structure of how they were going to work, right? So it's all about the organization adopting and then adopting the right technology. One of the things that we see, and maybe it's a hypothesis, I'm just saying that, is just because you're a large enterprise, you have to have enterprise suite of software. That's no longer true, because you have headless, you have APIs, you can have, whether it's open source or different stacks of software, which gives you a lot of freedom to be nimble and to adapt to change and get something out to market. And then you do your A/B testing and all those kinds of testing, adopt the best practices that you want to change to. So I've seen this in practice in real life, and I used to say, like, I used to think before I visited the bank, how did they do it? And once you see it, it's a revelation, because what you see is it seems very intuitive that you want to go ahead and implement this kind of way. But of course, it has to be top down, right? Everybody needs to be bought into it, and then of course scaled. And I saw that happening. I implemented in certain organizations. There were failures along the way. I don't want to talk about that right now, but yeah, I think that uh, I think one of the failures, one of the reasons I saw of failure was trying and adopting something without understanding it. Again, I come from a delivery IT. Has any of you heard of this Spotify model of ways of working? How they structure themselves into tribes and all of that. It's great. It works for them. It won't necessarily work for another industry unless you've actually figured it out. So there was another financial institution who tried to implement it. It didn't work, right? What will work for somebody else may or may not work for you. So you need to spend a bit of time, understand what will work for you, and then go along the journey. But also you need to understand when to change, right? Whether it's 3 months see the results, 6 months see the results, and then start adopting that change. So yeah.
No, great. I think very, very relevant insights there, Abhijit. Thanks. Let me come back to you, Francis. You, in your earlier comment, mentioned about data analytics, propensity modeling, and like what is the next best product to offer to your customers. Now, we all know that BFSI as a space, insurance as a space, is heavily regulated. A lot of infosec limitations, a lot of data sharing limitations. And in my personal experience in dealing with a lot of banking financial services brands, I've seen that a lot of these departments, they work in silos, be it marketing, be it digital, be it operations, persistency, so on and so forth, right? So how do you go about bringing everything together and then ensure that the BIU is being utilized to its fullest, so that the targeting or the recommendation, as you say, is absolutely precise? And besides that, what do you see in the last 3 to 4 years with the advent of more and more mobile technology? How has it impacted your business positively? If you can throw some light there.
Sure, I'll kind of take this in two parts. One is around how do you kind of do better collaboration across various departments, and the second is basically how do you kind of organize people and teams and such. I think the element that kind of comes most importantly is in terms of collaboration is to be able to kind of get a slightly cross-functional team, whoever's needed or required to deliver something, get them start working together, and preferably co-located if you can. Right. So let me give you a couple of examples that are it. Right. So it's very common that you have a lot of articles which you write both on knowledge centers, etc., from an SEO perspective. Now, in order to kind of get that message across, there is obviously some article which you'll write, but after that there'll be a whole bunch of things or loops you'll have to pass through before you kind of get it published on your website or, for that matter, anywhere else. It could be your compliance, it could be basically legal. In some cases, if you're written about it's taxation. In extreme cases for us, when we used to say, HRA and something else like that is mentioned, which your insurance product will help, it used to go to our HR also. So it was really funny that way. So the amount of time it took to write the article versus to iterate and to kind of get it approved was 4x the time for approval versus X, which was the time to write. So we said, okay, let's go back to these individual team members and partners and say, hey, you guys anyway spend a decent amount of time and we trouble you in terms of doing this. Why don't we feel that we'll be really better able to manage our marketing budgets if we are able to do this better. So let's do one thing. We'll take from our market budgets. We'll go to HR and we'll tell them, hey, why don't you give compliance one more headcount, right? And we'll tell compliance, say, compliance, why don't you kind of, this person will continue to report into your hierarchy, but he'll come and he'll sit next to my people and he'll be co-located and he'll work in this lean cell that we create, right? So some of these things you'll have to try to think through, and a lot of times it's more courage of saying that, okay, my pain will be reduced and I will kind of recover more than whatever I would have paid for a headcount for another department through the entire piece. So I think driving collaboration, through this way is one. Obviously, there are systems in place today. There are workflow management systems, what are called as nudge engines. There's Slack and things like that, which help drive productivity. But again, adoption is important there. As in, you have that a certain sort of rigor in terms of people going and using that entire aspect. Today, I still know a lot of businesses which still run on WhatsApp, and WhatsApp as a collaboration tool. As long as it works for them, great. Right? I mean, but you still need to have people kind of coming, posting, getting some of those things up and running, per se. So that's point number one. Point number two, in terms of organizing people, right? Irrespective of what and how you decide organizing people into different sub departments or different departments, I think one of the key elements is to have sort of co-owned KPIs in some sense, right? So if you are somebody who's doing top of the funnel work in marketing, you would have, say, KPIs which will say how much have I increased brand search trends over category search trends, or how much website visits have I driven. If you are somebody who's in mid funnel and in performance, you obviously have a lead and a lead number which is there. Along with the lead number, you have a quality sort of target which is associated with the actual conversions that you do, or rather actual business that you shoot, right? So that way, basically, kind of distributing, co-owned targets, especially one level downstream, is usually very, very useful and very, very done. A lot of times people come back saying that, but I don't control it completely. That's fine. I mean, in weightage in your entire sheet, it could be slightly different, but that's still a significant leverage for you to kind of move towards. The other is, if you can, and take a leaf out of what's agile and Scrum and stuff like that, and try to do sprints rather than try to do individual departments. And you'll be surprised as to how much agile marketing can also do. It doesn't have to be only agile software development or DevOps, right? Agile marketing, wherein you have somebody from the IT team, you have somebody from your website or the product team, somebody from the actual digital marketing team who's running those campaigns, and somebody from the fulfillment team to kind of give inputs of how it is working and how our customers responding to it. I think all of these things together kind of and doing both a sprint kind of an exercise, as well as very importantly a debriefing exercise. Say what assumptions went wrong, how did it go, without placing blame. I think some of these things can really help that part of collaboration also really increase.
And the second part, how has that impacted your business positively in the last few years?
I think we've been able to kind of do a lot more than what we started out doing, right? And a lot of times we take projects as this big sort of long-term project and everything else, right? A good example would be our website and our website revamp project. At one point of time, the website was basically good to do. I mean, was running well. However, we felt that it was not very customer centric from the way it was, right? I mean, it was more salesy. You had a lead form popping up everywhere, and you have all the other important parts. So we said, okay, let's do this sort of long-term piece. We did a customer research. We kind of changed a lot of things. We went ahead with a very, very sort of minimalist, clean website design, right? In the process, and since we did this and we had multiple groups and everything else, in the process, I think the core objective that the website also needs to sell, right, did not get achieved. So we said, okay, now there's no point in doing a U-turn and rolling back everything. Let's basically go back and again, let's not go and make it as the way it was, or as hustling a website as the way it was. However, keeping customer centricity in as the forefront. What more can we do to kind of improve experience? What more text can we add to improve SEO? What more can we do to improve better CTRs and better straight throughs? How can we kind of create a conversion rate optimization team which will help at different stages, which are cross-functional team? And I think by iterations, we've started seeing the business generated from the website increase considerably over a period of time. And still, I would say it's a work in progress. With each iteration, it gets better.
And where do you see the mobile app ecosystem for insurance business in particular?
That's a tough one. It is a tough one. See, we are not, and especially life insurance, right? Not so much general. We are not what I would call as everyday insurer, right? So you will open your banking app to do an NEFT transaction, to do UPI, maybe to do something else, to check your balance and stuff. You will not necessarily open your life insurance app. Forget about every day. You might open it, once a year when you're doing, your premium renewal or things like that, or basically when you want to do a fund switch and stuff like that. Okay, unless you're very, very obsessed, which you should not be, with your fund value, then maybe you'll start tracking the fund value for your mobile, for your ULIP product, the way you track it for a mutual fund. Although that completely beats the purpose of investing in a ULIP versus investing in a mutual fund. But having said that, you're not an everyday insurer. So if you're not an everyday insurer, what can you be? Right? One is, let's try to be an everyday insurer. Okay, so let's basically go put, a pedometer of how many steps you've taken, or some health advice, or whatever else, associated adjunct related services into the app, and let's make it that, right? Works, but then, why would somebody kind of use an insurance app as a pedometer when there are 10 pedometers around, right? And 10 step counters around. So you need to start thinking about what is it that, whenever people do want me, how can the app be really useful for that, right? So if somebody is coming and using me to pay premiums, how can I make it as minimum number of clicks to figure out how we can pay premiums fast? If somebody is coming to us for discovery, how can we basically do discovery better? If we're going to use the mobile app for lead nurturing, right? If somebody kind of drops a lead and then kind of doesn't pick up a call or doesn't do anything, can we use this as a notification to figure out when and the best time to reach to him, or best way he can interact? If he's logged in a policy, or he's basically decided that he wants to buy something for us, can we use the mobile app as information as to where exactly in our processing is it, and when is he likely to get his policy, right? So I think when you focus on some of those things and be useful for when the customer needs you. I think that's a better way. Although I think there are still people who are trying to be an everyday insurer. I mean, I'm very interested in the space. I would kind of continue to look at it. My own view is that it's a good to have. I don't think we can easily become an everyday insurer.
Right. Fair point. Abhijit, let me come to you. You have done digital transformation. You participate in multiple projects across multiple brands and domains, right? Now, let me ask you a very, very straight question. What's it? I mean, effort versus outcome. What's in your experience? How do you see some of these brand adopting some of these new age technologies, and then what's the outcome that they've actually gotten out of it?
Okay, sure. If I can answer that simply, I think I'll get my doctorate right here. Get lots of fun. Okay. Um, I think the organizations and brands which have adopted digital really, really well haven't really. It's about digitization and then digital transformation, right? It's a way of transforming their own ways of working at its core, right? Anybody who just picked it up as another channel to acquire customers without looking at the holistic, I would say they have had their work cut out for us. But going back to that, see, when you transform your organization and say that how are you going to use the power of technology as an enabler to make differences to consumer experience and customer experience, and you're really thinking about how do you impact that, that is a big, big change. Um, I mean, I will quote Jeff Bezos, right? If you go back and read some of his earlier statements to his investors, right? Amazon, he's described as a customer experience company. They started out selling books, but he was very clear from the beginning. It's how do you change customer experience? If what you were saying, for example, with your mobile app or for any of the transformation, right? The moment you start thinking about how you're going to make a difference to the customer, you know you're on the right path because that is an outcome you can actually measure easily, right? And yes, you talk about ROI and on your marketing transformation and marketing spend, digital marketing spend. But the truth is, how many customers are you getting? Are those customers, you know, can you cross sell and upsell them, and are they coming back for repeat sales, right? What is the lifetime value of the customer? Those are things you can actually measure and manage, right? And once you get that outcome, right, there's automatically ROI on your spend, right? It's a very easy justification. I'll give you a conversation. I'll give you an example, play back a conversation. So a lot of the work I do is actually in the marketing automation space, right? Most of the products out there, the first marketing automation thing they'll talk about is email. How many of you open your emails, right? So all those marketing emails you get from, which go into your Gmail, yeah, promotions folder, you open all of those and click them, right? They're not supposed to be open. Just compare that to what you start getting in WhatsApp, right? The fact is that we know that WhatsApp has, so instead of making email the default for marketing automation, right? Make WhatsApp the default, make that your first, right? So those are the kind of conversations and thought processes which lead to great outcome, because the outcome of marketing, digital marketing, digital transformation is ultimately you're trying to improve the experience for somebody, right? Whether it's internal or for external. So
Right. Great point you make that, Abhijit. Francis, I mean, I know for a fact that HDFC Life has adopted a lot of new technologies right now. What's your view on some of these new age fintechs, right? Some of these marketplaces, aggregators. How have you partnered with them? How has your digital transformation journey complemented that partnership? And in turn, by adopting some of these new age technologies, how do you see yourself competing better in the marketplace with them?
Okay, another fairly loaded question. Again, let me kind of take it into two parts. I think one is we do a lot of collaboration with most fintechs, right? In some cases, they are our distribution partners. So a lot of the third-party aggregators that you see, a lot of the price comparison websites that you see, a lot of these are also work with us as brokers, as vendor partners, and so on and so forth. So therefore, that piece is definitely there. Another very interesting area of technology, and it's slightly more on the customer journey, less on the marketing side, but very relevant, is today banks, as you would have a lot of you would have kind of read about, have moved to this what is called as a multi-tied scenario. A multi-tied scenario means you can sell not only one life insurer, but basically three life insurance, three general insurance, and three health insurance companies, right? So what used to happen is that most insurers would scramble to kind of various banks and NBFCs to be a partner there, and then say, can we sign up? Okay, yes, great. If you sign up, and then say, okay, here's my sort of great frictionless, amazing buying journey, right? The bank or the NBFC say, okay, great, thank you, but you're nine of you. How do I integrate with nine? And why do I integrate with nine? Right. So increasingly, a lot of sort of product agnostic, whether it's GI, LI, or health insurance, product agnostic sort of buying journeys. A lot of good startups and fintechs have started building some of these. Using some of these journeys, what happens is it's much easier for the distributor in this case to kind of connect with not only one but multiple life insurance partners or GI partners or HI partners and stuff like that. So all these are methods where you kind of do more active collaboration. Right? Apart from that, you kind of take a leaf and figure out what can you work with startups with. Right? So one of the things that we do is we kind of run a program called as Futurance, which basically is each of these departments kind of come up with a certain set of use cases. These are handed over to the innovation team within the company. The innovation team basically goes and works with various VCs as well as incubators to kind of look for specific startups who can solve for these use cases. These are then basically onboarded in the form of POCs, both paid and unpaid. And eventually, when things work, they kind of move into potential vendor partners. And I think over a period of 3 to 4 years, we've had that many, I think 4 or 5 very, very good people who are, our partners who have now basically become a part of this entire exercise. And now they are treated at almost as par as any other long established or big tech partners that we have. So that's another way of kind of looking at it.
Right. Now, when we talk about traditional insurers, right, we know that there are a lot of costs involved when it comes to assisting customers with policies, a lot of physical documentation involved. Now, when we talk about digital transformation, the two core pieces, which I believe you gentlemen would agree, would one be customer centricity, how to improve the customer experience. The second piece is how to improve and optimize your costs. So, by the virtue of adoption of some of these newer technologies, how do you see that aspect, or especially the cost optimization aspect, working for you? Has that significantly impacted on how your P&Ls look like of late?
Yeah, I think it has, especially on the post-sale side, I would say, and servicing and some of the other service elements. I think the idea was you need to have that many branches and that many people in the branches, and that many people managing the inbound contact center for customer service. I think a significant amount of that has moved to self-service and continues to move. So if not actually, people reduction and stuff, there's always been a cost avoidance, as in you don't kind of recruit, although your back book has grown by that much, say 30-40% over the last 3-4 years, your sort of manpower at that end has not grown by that amount because it's now augmented with technology, right? Both just plain technology as well as AI to a large extent. So I think augmentation has helped in a lot of operational processes, both on the new business customer onboarding as well as on the customer service piece. Most definitely, I think that's two areas where I would say there is a proper ROI impact. The other element of ROI impact is basically, have we through better personalization, through more information of the customer, etc., have we been able to do, say for example, better cross sell, or figure out when to reach the customer at the right points in time, right? I think that's the other big use case that happens. And similarly, for insurance specifically, is this whole piece of renewals. Renewals is basically when people come and pay their second premium and third premium and stuff. The interesting thing is, as a industry overall, we've seen persistency increase significantly, and a lot of that basically is a reduction in the policy maintenance cost thanks to technology. So there has been a decent ROI there. I think for HDFC Life today, I think our persistency on the 13th month is somewhere around 87, 88% with some channels, like for example, the online piece at 95% plus, right? So I think those are fairly decent persistency numbers which were not there in the past. And all this is primarily thanks to customer retention technology.
Right. That's a great point that you make, Francis. Abhijit, I mean, over the last few years, what are the core challenges that you see in BFSI organizations adopting these digital transformation technologies? So, I mean, I'm sure you have very many stories there, but I would want you to focus on a few success stories where you feel that the projects have been implemented very, very successfully, and it's kind of been a very, very sustainable path for that particular organization.
Sure. Loaded question. Um, See, one thing with BFSI industry, and there are a couple of industries like BFSI, for example, pharma as well, is obviously very, very heavily regulated, right? And especially, for example, insurance, if you take very heavily regulated, the regulator just, passes something one fine day and you need to adapt to it, right? The flip side is the way a lot of these organizations, especially the large organizations, were structured, product centric, one, there's a separate piece of IT somewhere, right? I think I would say two major changes. One of them is what's happening overall in the tech industry, which is with a lot of software, especially for example, moving to cloud, to headless, being API driven. Okay, um, you can change parts of the software. So, for example, you can update your product details. You can update your, custom, how you capture customer data. For example, how you roll it out. The speed of reaction has changed, right? You can go to market faster with your communication. That's one aspect, which is not just limited to BFSI but across the board, right? The other one is where I think how they have managed to restructure themselves, right, in implementing some of these projects. If your project organization or whatever big programs you're running is implemented in a way which is, yes, it is forward looking, there is a long term roadmap, but you're constantly checking yourself every, I don't know, 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months down the line, you are automatically getting that discipline. How are you going to react to change, right? And this goes back to some of whether it is, learning from agile principles, and it's not just limited to software development, right? um, have you got, for example, your the field force, right, within that organization? How are they interacting? You roll a new product out, right? Have you trained your call centers to expect more calls or less calls, right? You were talking about cost reduction as uh, once people, there's a lot of self-service in place, there's a big reduction in calls coming into the call center, for example, right? Less number of queries, but suddenly there's some announcements by IRDA, there's going to be a spike. So are you getting that communication out to the entire sort of service, your own service wing, right? I think those are the two big factors which have helped organizations sort of adopt digital, be faster.
So tell me something, Abhijit. Is it truly cost optimization, truly customer centricity, truly growth, or is it out of FOMO that a lot of these orgs are?
Oh, wow.
What's your take?
So I'm an optimist at heart, right? I love rom-coms and all of that. Uh, I think when people know that the experience they're getting is better, the life they are getting, their life is improved in certain ways, they will adapt to it, right? Um, I mean, I will touch on a very controversial topic, right, which is demonetization, which happened in our country, right? Uh, Come forward a few years from now, I think the way we transact has completely changed, right? I mean, there are many days when I just forget to take my wallet out. It's as simple as that. I don't even go out with my wallet. Everything's on my phone, which is a separate problem itself. But uh, uh, The so I would say less than FOMO. It is about, are you improving the life of your consumers and customers? And I think that's a far more positive message and a far more empowering message to the organizations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I'm pretty much done with all my questions. We have about 5 minutes. So if anyone from the audience wants to ask any questions, these gentlemen, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks you. Francis, this question for you. You mentioned about not being an everyday app, right? Where users don't find a reason to open their app, and I can completely resonate with that. Have you thought on the point of about, say, getting alternate intelligence about your users, right? So that you know what they are doing beyond insurance, and maybe if you want to say have a reason for them to come to your app, like I understand where you're coming from. A lot of these policies give you daily steps, etc., health checkups, and etc. But what in your opinion, how much importance would you give to that aspect where you would be looking to get say alternate intelligence about users, so you can define your segmentation strategy, that okay, my users are doing this outside insurance, what can I do for them separately or bundle it in the insurance? Any thoughts on that?
No, so would we like to be an everyday insurer? Answer is yes. As in, would I like to be an app which gets opened every day? Would I like to get a lot of information from my customers' emails and WhatsApp and messages? Obviously, with consent. Obviously, yes, right. But what's in it for the customer? What's in it for the person who's downloading and keeping that app, right? Uh, the way I think it can work is if insurers over a period of time can convince both their sort of underwriting teams as well as reinsurers, which are fairly important stakeholders in the entire exercise, that you're giving something back to the customer. So today, if I am, I have kept a step counter, or I have kept an exercise meter, or I have kept something else on my app, why should a customer log in here versus anywhere else? The only reason is that if, as a result of that, if I can offer him, say, a discount or a faster underwriting or something else, or a health score which will allow him to go straight through without necessarily going through medicals all over again. Because technically speaking, it's better information, right? You whenever you do medicals, it's just a cross-sectional information at a given point in time. Now you have longitudinal information over a period of time of the customer's health. Till now, we have not been very, very successful at doing that. I mean, internationally, there have been some people. A good example is, I think, Hancock in the US, which is now started giving, Fitbit kind of devices along with the insurance policies and start doing that. It's not been done at scale in GI. In LI, it's hardly ever been done at all, right? So I think if you're able to give something back to the customer, then yes, you have a strong proposition to become a everyday insurer.
Sure, thanks. Makes sense. Thanks.
Any minutes for questions?
Francis, now when you sell the policies, how much sales you do from your app and from the third-party app like Policy Bazaars and other people? How much do you? What is the percentage?
Sure. So we have 3 or 4 different ways we sell, right? So there is obviously people coming directly to our website and to our app. There is obviously third-party apps, like you mentioned, Policy Bazaar, they're also a fairly large sort of third-party aggregator and broker partner with us. There's also basically all our other partners, right? We have corporate agency partnerships and bank assurance partnerships with a whole bunch of banks and NBFCs, right? What we're doing is, when we look at digital business, there are 2-3 ways of measuring it. One is measuring it obviously of people who come and directly buy through you on our own. The other is, have you enabled the overall ecosystem better? So for example, HDFC Bank is one of our sister companies and also largest sort of distribution partners that we have. Can we have more people buying through their net banking than necessarily growing through their branch banking and the entire piece? Are they enabled enough to kind of go through that route and move faster? That's what we try to kind of look at. And therefore, whatever sort of online discounts and online perks we offer that similarly across to all distribution partners. So the way we measure the pie is, have we increased and have we grown the overall sort of digital, or I would say unassisted pie or semi-assisted pie, versus a person-to-person on-ground selling pie. And I think from that perspective, we've been fairly successful over a period of time. I think, while I'll not be able to quote exact numbers, that pie has grown at a fairly decent CAGR, almost like a 5x growth over the last 4-5 years.
Questions, anyone else?
Hi, Francis. Prasanna this side. So the question is for you. So you must have seen the transformation of acquiring customer from physical form filling to the digital one, right? So, but now insurance is the product which is very difficult to sell in any NBFC industries. So my question to you is, currently the process is, you have like many assistant who are assisting the customer at multiple points. But according to you, how long it will take to transform the entire assisted journey to non-assisted journey or DIY journey? So what would be your take on this?
It will take some time. It is increasing as we speak, right? But I think there need to be some 2, 3, 4 necessary surrogates, right? And see, today let's kind of classify who are the people who are buying online directly, right, without assistance. That will give you a good idea of who these people are. So today the online customer is generally younger, more digitally savvy, right? Not necessarily more moneyed, not necessarily someone who's higher income, right? Usually in the 3 to 5 or maybe 5 to 10 lakh annual income bracket, right? Also not psychographically somebody who likes to maintain control, right? So all of us know our friends or somebody in our vicinity who files their own income tax returns, right? While today getting an income tax returns filed by any of the people who offer these services is much easier, then why would somebody take that effort and do it themselves? There are people who like to maintain that control. They believe that if I have written everything correctly, I know exactly where my finances are, and I have kind of put everything and I've seen everything else. So psychographically, this is the customer set, right? What is he getting in return? He's getting the sense of satisfaction of having it done himself, some smaller online discount that would be there. Usually not more than 1 to 5%, because usually you don't give a larger discount because you don't want to avoid too much of a channel conflict and things like that. That's the only thing that he's getting back. So what you have to think again is what's in it for the customer to take this effort, versus reaching out to my relationship manager or to my IFA and say, where do I sign? And you take care of the rest, right? Because that's what most of us would want to do, right? So either we make the process as easy as making a UPI payment itself, right, which a lot of people have started doing themselves, or basically give back something which is what's in it for the customer. Usually, and this is again across the industry true, people who kind of come and buy unassisted online have better persistency, because they have chosen and they know what they bought. There's very little missell. There's better claims payouts because they've made all the disclosures themselves, right? They are worried about their own policy. I'm not saying all intermediaries are bad, but there could be some intermediaries who say, okay, if I'm going to disclose this about the customer, my policy will not get straight through. I'll not earn my commission in time, right? So you've kind of made all your disclosures yourself. So the level of disclosures are much better, and therefore claims payouts are much better and much earlier than investigation exercises and stuff like that. So given some of these things, I think 2 things have to happen. One, we need to continue to use surrogates, continue to figure out how we can shorten the form, how we can figure out medical data. I think there are a lot of financial surrogates today. I think a lot of medical surrogates need to come in place. So these are some of the things which will accelerate the journey smoothing exercise. 2, I think it's up to a lot of insurers to start thinking about what can I give back to the customer for the effort that he's taking to do this.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and thank you so much, Abhijit and Francis, for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis and Abhijit, for your insights and intriguing conversation.